Welcome to the channel. You have certainly heard on global forums or in the media that the globe is now bipolar, if not multipolar. America is no longer the only superpower. Another global power, China, is threatening America's global influence and domination. But is this actually the case? Is America no longer an economic and military powerhouse? Is the basis for making these claims? Let's look at the facts underlining these claims, which many experts used to suggest that America is no longer the sole superpower. The situation in the field is tough and things haven't been great in America over the past few days. For 5 centuries, America was the lone superpower, not only in the military terms but also economically. Over the last century, America has been the world's unquestioned economic leader. Now, other economic power came close to matching America. During the Cold War, the Soviet Union was unquestionably America's competitor, yet it never posed a serious economic danger to America. The Soviet Union's total national production, or GDP, was less than half that of America. It is used to happen occasionally, but this is the first time in a century that China has given the United States serious competition on the ground. In reality, China purchasing power GDP exceeds America's. However, the number of products and services that can be purchased in the United States with this money is less than what China can buy domestically. With its yearly GDP, even while China's overall GDP in dollar terms is smaller than that of the United States, this simply indicates that the cost of services and commodities in China is cheaper than in America. But in recent decades, China GDP has overtaken that of the United States. In recent years, China's economy has expanded more than 3 times faster than America's, while the US economy has risen at a pace of 2 to 3% per year. China has grown at an average rate of 9% per year for the same period. The United States presently has the biggest federal debt in history, totaling more than $36 trillion. The yearly interest payment on this debt have likewise exceeded $700 billion. It is also predicted to rise more next year. To put this number into perspective, just 20 nations will spend more than America's defense spending next year. The typical American city residents bear the burden of annual interest payment as well as the tremendous expenses of maintaining military bases across the world, while yet having access to acceptable and cheap healthcare, education, housing, and other resources. This is definitely a concerning position for a country dubbed a superpower just 2 decades ago on a worldwide scale. Whenever a country had economic difficulties or required new technologies from military energy or building, America and her allies were the only options available. The environment was fully favorable to America, especially when the Soviet Union collapsed. But this is no longer the case. Competitors like is China and Russia are not only forging their own global alliances, but also forming new partnerships in the domains of economics, technology, and commerce. In other words, the game is evolving. And now emerging nations have options, and the globe is obviously in a transitional movement. All of these nations are forming new alliances based on their own interests. China and Russia's expanding influence in African countries make them important partners in this endeavor. When we compare this to today's America, the life of an average American citizen has grown difficult. House and apartments costs are becoming too expensive for middle class families. Back then, the average American city dweller's salary was around half to one third of what a house cost in the United States. The average house or apartment now costs 6 to 7 times the median family's annual income, representing a 2 to 3-fold increase. Similarly, healthcare imposes a significant cost on average Americans. Up to the 1970s, most occupations and employer provided health insurance. Owing to the prevalence of industrial jobs in the United States, the boundaries have already been reached, which is why there are fewer employment and private health insurance is prohibitively costly for the typical American. If we compare the expense of college education now to what it was 5 decades ago. Relative to the typical income of an American household, it has increased by more than 3 times. This implies that although the average American family's income has grown by around 50%, college tuition and related expenses have climbed more than 3 times as much. These figures apply to both private and government colleges. Today, most American families struggle to pay college. American students used to pay their tuitions by working part time jobs, but today they must take out loans to offset these high expenditures. Repaying these loans have become a significant issue in American culture when it comes to wealth concentration or how money is becoming increasingly concentrated in fewer hands. The situation in the United States is worse than in many other nations. Back in World War II, when it came to economic distribution, America was seen to be better endowed than Europe. Back then, wealth was spread out among more people in the country, but now it's become so limited that it's shrunk and concentrated in the hands of just a few. Today, the situation is that about 40% of America's total wealth is held by just 1% of Americans. In terms of unequal wealth distribution, America's condition is no far worse than Europe's. The American federal government's minimum wage has barely increased and it was last set back in 2009. Even after 16 years, there hasn't been any rise. It still hasn't been done, even though inflation has been crushing the American people for years.